Commander Hana stepped off her sleek Federation warship onto the metal docking platform of Earth Station Alpha. Her purple skin gleamed under the artificial lights, and her 4 arms moved with practiced military precision. She had done this exact same routine on over 200 worlds. The pattern never changed. Local species would see her massive ship, recognize the Federation symbols, and immediately fall to their knees begging for mercy. But something felt different here. Instead of cowering humans running in terror, she saw curious faces pressed against observation windows. Workers continued loading cargo as if a Federation enforcement vessel was just another Tuesday occurrence. Most shocking of all, a human male in a simple blue uniform walked directly toward her with confident steps. Captain Jinwoo stopped exactly 3 meters away and performed what looked like a respectful bow. Hana had never seen anything like it. On Zephyron Prime, the locals had thrown themselves face first into the dirt. On Galactic 7, the entire population had hidden in underground bunkers for weeks. "Welcome to Earth Station Alpha," Jinwoo said, in perfect galactic standard. His voice was calm, almost friendly. "I am Captain Jinwoo Park, Station Commander. May I see your docking permits and authorization documentation?" Hana's secondary arms twitched in confusion. Documentation? Permits? She represented the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Her ship could reduce this entire station to space dust in 30 seconds. Yet this human was asking for paperwork like she was some merchant trader. "I am Commander Hana of the Galactic Federation Enforcement Division," she announced, expecting the usual terrified scrambling. "By authority of the High Council, this facility and all human personnel are under immediate arrest for violations of Communications Protocol 77 Alpha." Jinwoo nodded politely and pulled out a small tablet. "I understand your position, Commander. However, Earth's legal department will need to review proper jurisdiction before we can process any arrests. Do you have the signed enforcement warrant from a Federation tribunal?" The question hit Hana like a plasma blast. Warrant? In her 3 centuries of service, no species had ever asked for a warrant. The Federation was the warrant. Their word was absolute law across 800 star systems. "The Federation does not require warrants for enforcement actions," Hana said, though her voice carried less certainty than usual. "Ah, I see the confusion," Jinwoo replied, his tone remaining respectful. "Earth maintains sovereignty over our local space until formal treaty ratification. Since we haven't signed Federation membership agreements, standard enforcement protocols may not apply here." Hana felt her primary heart skip a beat. This human was quoting Federation legal code back to her. How was that possible? The Federation barely taught their own officers these obscure regulations, yet somehow this backwater species knew them perfectly. "Furthermore," Jinwoo continued, consulting his tablet, "Communications Protocol 77 Alpha specifically exempts emergency broadcasts and distress signals, which covers 87% of our recent transmissions. The remaining 13% falls under cultural exchange provisions outlined in Section 4 of the Non-Interference Treaty." The docking bay fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Hana stood frozen, processing what she had just heard. This human had not only refused to surrender, but had presented a legal argument that actually made sense. In 300 years of Federation service, she had never encountered anything remotely like this situation. Her communication device buzzed with an incoming message from the High Council, demanding an immediate status report. For the first time in her career, Commander Hana had absolutely no idea what to tell them. Jinwoo gestured toward a nearby conference room with glass walls. "Commander, would you prefer to discuss this matter privately? I believe there may be some misunderstandings about Earth's legal status that we can clear up quickly." Hana followed, her mind still reeling from the human's unexpected knowledge of Federation protocols. Inside the conference room, she noticed detailed star charts covering the walls, along with what appeared to be copies of official Federation documents. How had these humans obtained classified legal texts? A young human woman entered, carrying a stack of folders that looked impossibly thick. She wore the same blue uniform as Jinwoo, with lieutenant stripes on her sleeves. "Commander?" Hana, this is Lieutenant Mina Kim, our legal affairs specialist, Jinwoo said. She's been researching the exact nature of Earth's relationship with the Federation. Mina placed the folders on the table and opened the first one. Inside were dozens of official documents, each bearing authentic Federation seals and signatures. Hana recognized the formatting immediately, but she had never seen some of these treaties before. The issue is quite straightforward, Mina explained, her voice clear and professional. Earth was designated as a protected development zone under Resolution 2847B approximately 57 years ago. This status specifically prohibits direct Federation intervention without local government consent. She pulled out a document and placed it in front of Hana. Here's the original designation, signed by High Counselor Vexstar himself. The protection remains valid until Earth's government formally requests Federation membership or commits acts of galactic aggression. Hana studied the document carefully. The seals were genuine, the signatures authentic. But how had humans obtained copies of internal Federation paperwork that even she hadn't seen? Moreover, Mina continued, flipping to another section, the communications protocol you mentioned has 17 documented exceptions, emergency medical requests, scientific data sharing, and cultural broadcasts all fall outside enforcement. Jurisdiction. We've categorized every transmission Earth has sent over the past decade. She handed Hana a detailed spreadsheet. Every single human broadcast was listed, categorized, and cross-referenced with specific Federation regulations that permitted such communications. This is impossible, Hana muttered, scanning the meticulous documentation. These legal codes aren't taught outside the Federation Academy. Some of these precedents are from classified tribunal cases. Jinwoo exchanged a glance with Mina. Commander, we've been monitoring Federation communications for quite some time. Your legal databases aren't as secure as you might think. We've had access to most of these documents for over 20 years. The revelation hit Hana like a meteor strike. These humans had been quietly studying Federation law while the Federation assumed they were primitive and ignorant. They knew the legal system better than most Federation officers, who typically relied on authority rather than actual legal knowledge. But even if your legal arguments are correct, Hana said, grasping for familiar ground, the Federation Council can simply change the laws. We have absolute authority over all inhabited systems. Mina smiled politely and opened another folder. Actually, that's where things get interesting. The Federation Constitution, ratified by all member species, requires unanimous Council approval for changes to existing protection treaties. Earth's protected status can only be revoked with our explicit consent. She placed the Federation Constitution on the table, opened to the relevant section. Hana read the passage 3 times, each reading making her situation worse. You see, Commander, Jinwoo said gently, we're not breaking any laws. The Federation is. Every enforcement action taken against a protected development zone without consent constitutes a violation of your own charter. We have documentation of 43 similar violations across different star systems over the past century. Hana stared at the evidence spread across the table, realizing that these humans had just legally checkmated the entire Galactic Federation. Hana reached for her command tablet, desperately searching through her digital files for any documentation that might support her authority. She scrolled through mission briefings, enforcement protocols, and standard operating procedures, but found nothing resembling an actual legal warrant or jurisdiction papers. This is ridiculous, she said, her voice rising slightly. The Federation doesn't issue individual warrants for every enforcement action. Our authority comes directly from the High Council's mandate. Jinwoo nodded understanding. I appreciate that perspective, Commander. However, according to Federation Legal Code Section 12, enforcement actions against protected development zones require specific tribunal approval. Without proper documentation, this becomes a jurisdictional dispute. He tapped his communication device. I think it would be helpful if you spoke with our senior legal advisor. He has extensive experience with interstellar law. Within minutes, another human entered the conference room. He appeared older than the others, with grey streaking his black hair and wearing a more formal version of the blue uniform. His calm demeanor reminded Hana uncomfortably of the Federation's most skilled legal prosecutors. "Commander Hana, this is Senior Advisor Hyun Lee," Jinwoo said. "He's been tracking Federation legal precedents for over 30 years. Hyun bowed respectfully and took a seat across from Hana. "Commander, I understand you're facing some documentation challenges. Perhaps I can help clarify the legal framework surrounding your current mission." He opened a sleek tablet and began scrolling through what appeared to be an enormous database of legal cases and precedents. "While researching Earth's protected status, we've had occasion to review many Federation enforcement actions across the galaxy. Unfortunately, we've discovered some concerning patterns." Hana felt her stomach's twist. "What kind of patterns?" "Well, for instance, the forced relocation of the Kalarian population from their homeworld 3 years ago. Federation records show this was classified as a voluntary resettlement, but intercepted communications reveal it was actually punishment for refusing mining rights." Hyun swiped to another file. "Then there's the blockade of Zephron supply routes last year. Officially listed as trade regulation enforcement, but internal messages clearly show it was economic coercion to force treaty compliance." Each example hit Hana like a physical blow. These were classified operations, internal communications that should have been impossible for humans to access. Yet Hyun spoke about them with the casual precision of someone reading from official reports. "How do you have access to classified Federation communications?" Hana demanded. "The same way we accessed your legal databases," Hyun replied calmly. "Federation security protocols haven't been updated in over 50 years. Your encryption methods are quite predictable once you understand the underlying patterns." He continued scrolling through his files. "In total, we've documented 17 major violations of the Federation's own charter over the past decade. Unauthorized military interventions, forced cultural assimilation programs, illegal resource extraction, suppression of independent broadcasting—" "Stop," Hana interrupted. "Even if these allegations were true, which I'm not admitting, you have no authority to investigate Federation internal affairs." Hyun looked up from his tablet with a slight smile. "Actually, Commander, we do. Article 7 of the Federation Charter states that any member species or protected territory has the right to file formal complaints about charter violations. As a protected development zone, Earth has standing to bring these matters before an independent tribunal." He handed her a formal document bearing official legal seals. "We've already filed preliminary charges with the Neutral Systems Court. All 17 violations, supported by intercepted communications, documented evidence and witness testimony from affected populations." Hana stared at the legal filing, realizing that her simple arrest mission had somehow transformed into the biggest legal challenge the Federation had faced in centuries. These humans hadn't just outmaneuvered her, they had turned the entire enforcement action into evidence for their own case against the Federation. Hana's communication device suddenly erupted with urgent beeping. She glanced at the display and saw 3 massive Federation dreadnoughts dropping out of hyperspace near Earth's outer orbital zone. Relief flooded through her purple features as she recognized the distinctive hull markings of Admiral Korth's task force. "It appears your backup has arrived," Jinwoo observed calmly, watching the tactical display on the conference room's main screen. The 3 Federation warships were each 10 times larger than Hana's enforcement vessel, bristling with enough firepower to level entire continents. "Now you'll see real Federation authority," Hana said, her confidence returning. "Admiral, Korth doesn't waste time with legal debates. He solves problems with direct action." She activated her communicator. "Admiral Korth, this is Commander Hana. The humans are refusing to surrender and making ridiculous legal arguments. Request immediate enforcement protocols." The Admiral's gruff voice crackled through the speaker. "Understood, Commander. Preparing to deploy boarding parties. These primitives will learn to respect Federation power." But before Hana could respond, something impossible happened. Warning sirens began blaring throughout the station as dozens of new contacts appeared on the tactical display. Ships were emerging from behind asteroids, from lunar installations, even from what appeared to be empty space itself. "What is this?" Hana demanded, staring at the screen in disbelief. Jinwoo pressed a button on his console. Earth Defense Fleet, this is Station Alpha Control. You are cleared to decloak and assume defensive positions. The tactical display transformed before Hana's eyes. What had appeared to be 3 Federation ships facing a defenseless human station now showed nearly 50 human vessels surrounding the Federation task force. The ships looked crude compared to Federation technology, but there were so many of them. Impossible, Hana whispered. Intelligence reports said humans barely had orbital capability. Intelligence reports said what we wanted them to say, new voice announced over the communication system. Admiral Korth, this is Captain Sumin Park of the Earth Defense Vessel Incheon. You are now surrounded and ordered to stand down immediately. On the main screen, Hana could see a sleek human ship moving into position between the Federation dreadnoughts and Earth. It was smaller than the Federation vessels, but moved with surprising grace and speed. Admiral Korth's angry voice filled the room. Human vessel, you are interfering with official Federation business. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Admiral, Captain Sumin replied, her voice carrying across all communication channels, before you make any hasty decisions, I suggest you review the evidence we're about to transmit to your entire fleet. Suddenly, every screen in the conference room lit up with detailed files, recordings, and documents. Hana recognized some of them from Hyun's earlier presentation, but there were hundreds more. Video recordings of Federation forces attacking civilian populations, audio files of Federation officers discussing illegal operations, financial records showing systematic resource theft from conquered worlds. What you're seeing, Sumin's voice continued, is comprehensive documentation of Federation war crimes spanning the last century. Every officer in your task force now has access to this evidence. They can see exactly what kind of organization they've been serving. Admiral Korth's communication channel went silent. On the tactical display, Hana could see communication traffic spiking between the Federation ships. Officers were reviewing the evidence, discussing what they were seeing, questioning orders they had never questioned before. The hunters have indeed become the hunted, Jinwoo said quietly, watching Hana's horrified expression. The difference is we hunt with truth and evidence, not weapons and fear. Hana realized that everything she thought she knew about this simple arrest mission had been completely wrong. The tension in the conference room grew thicker as another human entered, wearing formal diplomatic robes that Hana recognized from high-level Federation ceremonies. His presence commanded immediate attention, and even Admiral Korth's angry transmissions seemed to quiet down. Commander Hana, Jinwoo said, I'd like you to meet Ambassador Taiho Jung, Earth's chief diplomatic representative to interstellar affairs. Taiho bowed formally to Hana, but his expression remained serious. Commander, what happens next will determine the future of galactic civilization. I hope you understand the gravity of this moment. He placed a crystal data core on the conference table, the same kind used for the most important Federation legal proceedings. By the authority granted to Earth as a protected development zone and in accordance with galactic justice protocols established by the Federation's own charter, I hereby formally charge the Galactic Federation with systematic oppression, illegal territorial expansion, and crimes against sentient species. Hana's forearms went rigid with shock. You cannot charge the Federation with anything. We are the law. Actually, another voice said from the doorway, the law is much more complex than that. A human woman entered carrying several ancient-looking books and digital tablets. Her scholarly appearance reminded Hana of the Federation's most respected legal experts, but something about her quiet confidence was far more intimidating. This is Professor Yuna Choi, Taiho explained. She specializes in interstellar legal history and has spent decades studying the original Federation charter documents. Yuna opened one of the ancient books, its pages filled with text in multiple alien languages. The Federation was originally founded as a cooperative alliance, not an empire. The charter specifically forbids the use of military force for territorial expansion or resource acquisition. She turned to a marked page. Article 3, Section 7 clearly states that member species retain sovereignty over internal affairs, and cannot be compelled to surrender resources without fair compensation and voluntary agreement. Hana stared at the book. She had never seen the original Federation Charter, only the modern interpretations taught at the Academy. That can't be right. The Federation has expanded peacefully for centuries. Peacefully? Yuna asked, opening her tablet to display a detailed timeline. The Calarian relocation involved forcing 3 million beings from their ancestral home because they refused to allow strip mining of their sacred mountains. The Zephyron compliance action resulted in the deaths of over 50,000 civilians when they resisted cultural assimilation programs. Each example she presented made Hana feel sicker. These weren't the heroic peacekeeping missions described in Federation history books. These were systematic campaigns of conquest and oppression. In total, Yuna continued, we have documented evidence of Federation violations spanning over 3 centuries, forced relocations, cultural destruction, illegal resource extraction, suppression of independent governments, and systematic intimidation of peaceful species. Taiho activated a communication device that connected to every Federation ship in the system. Admiral Korth, by the authority of interstellar law and with the evidence provided by Professor Choi, you and your officers are now under arrest for participating in illegal military actions against protected territories. The communication channels exploded with confused voices. Federation officers who had never questioned their orders were suddenly faced with evidence that everything they had done was illegal according to their own laws. This is insane, Admiral Korth's voice crackled through the speakers. The High Council will never recognize these charges. The High Council doesn't have a choice, Taiho replied calmly. We've already transmitted all evidence to the neutral Systems Court, the Independent Traders Alliance, and 47 different species governments. The entire galaxy now knows what the Federation has really been doing. Hana watched in horror as her entire worldview collapsed. The organization she had served faithfully for 3 centuries wasn't the force for peace and order she had believed. It was exactly the kind of oppressive empire the Federation Charter had been written to prevent. A young human technician rushed into the conference room, his face flushed with excitement. He carried a sophisticated communication array that looked far more advanced than anything Hana had expected from Earth's supposedly primitive technology. Ambassador Taiho, the technician said breathlessly, we're ready to begin the Galactic broadcast. All relay stations are synchronized and standing by. Taiho nodded gravely. Thank you, Inho. This is the moment we've been preparing for. Begin transmission on all frequencies. Inho's fingers danced across his control panel with practiced precision. Broadcasting now to all inhabited systems. Using Federation communication, networks, independent trade routes, and our own hidden relay stations. Hana watched in growing horror as status lights across Inho's equipment turned green one by one. Each light represented another star system receiving the evidence of Federation crimes. You're using our own communication networks against us? Your security protocols haven't been updated in decades, Inho explained matter-of-factly. We've had access to Federation communications for over 20 years. Every message, every order, every classified report has been copied and stored. The main display screen divided into dozens of smaller windows, each showing different alien worlds. Receiving the transmission, Hana recognized some of the species immediately, beings she had personally helped suppress during various Federation peacekeeping missions. On Kelax 7, the turtle-like Calaxians were gathering in their underground cities, watching human evidence of their forced relocation on massive screens. Their slow, deliberate movements showed growing anger as they learned the truth about their displacement. The crystalline beings of Zephyron Prime were projecting the broadcast through their living cities, their bodies flickering with colors that Hana knew meant rage and determination. They had been told their cultural suppression was necessary for galactic harmony, but now they saw it was simple conquest. The responses are coming in faster than we expected, Inho reported, monitoring incoming messages. Kelax 7 has just declared independence from Federation authority. Zephyron Prime is demanding immediate withdrawal of all Federation forces. More status updates flooded in. The aquatic delphinids of Oceania Prime were broadcasting their own declaration of sovereignty. The insectoid hive worlds were formally rejecting Federation trade agreements they now knew were nothing but resource theft, disguised as commerce. "This is impossible," Hana whispered, watching her life's work crumble before her eyes. "These species depend on Federation protection and guidance." "Protection from what?" Yuna asked, pulling up another file. "Your own records show that most interstellar conflicts over the past century were started by Federation expansion. You created the problems, then offered yourselves as the solution." The broadcast continued, spreading like wildfire through galactic communication networks. Species that had been isolated from each other for decades were suddenly sharing information, comparing experiences, and realizing they weren't alone in their suffering. Inho looked up from his console with wide eyes. "Ambassador, we're receiving formal independence declarations from 43 different worlds. The Traders Alliance is offering military support to any species wanting to resist Federation enforcement actions." "My God," Admiral Korth's voice came through the speakers, heavy with disbelief. "Half the Federation is declaring independence. The High Council is ordering all ships to return to core territories immediately." Taiho stood calmly amid the chaos, watching the galactic map as system after system changed from Federation blue to independent green. "This is what happens when truth replaces propaganda, Commander Hana. When people know their rights, they demand justice." Within 6 hours, the Federation had lost control of over 60% of its territory. The galaxy's greatest empire was collapsing not through military conquest, but through the simple power of information and the universal desire for freedom. 3 days after the galactic broadcast began, a sleek diplomatic vessel arrived at Earth's outer perimeter. Unlike the warships that had come before, this ship flew under a white flag of truce and requested permission to dock peacefully. Hana, who had remained on Earth Station Alpha during the chaos, watched through the observation windows as the diplomatic craft approached. Her own people had come to negotiate with humans, something that would have been unthinkable a week ago. "The Federation Council is sending High Councillor Kiwon," Jinwoo informed her. "He's requested immediate talks with our senior diplomatic team." Within hours, the station's main conference hall had been transformed into a formal negotiation chamber. Representatives from dozens of newly independent worlds attended via holographic projection, creating a diverse assembly of alien species, all united in their opposition to Federation rule. High Councillor Kiwon entered with a small entourage, his scaled reptilian features showing obvious stress. As one of the Federation's most senior leaders, he had never imagined he would be sitting across from humans as equals, much less as the weaker party in negotiations. The human delegation was led by a middle-aged woman whose calm demeanor reminded Hana of the most skilled Federation diplomats she had ever encountered. Her simple grey business suit contrasted sharply with Kiwon's elaborate ceremonial robes. "Councillor Kiwon," the woman said, rising to greet him with a respectful bow. "I am Nara Shin, representing Earth and the Coalition of Independent Worlds. Thank you for coming to discuss this situation peacefully." Kiwon shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Representative Shin, the Federation Council is prepared to discuss certain adjustments to our administrative policies. Perhaps we can find a compromise that benefits everyone." "I appreciate your willingness to negotiate," Nara replied evenly. "However, this isn't about policy adjustments. This is about fundamental violations of interstellar law that have continued for centuries." She activated a holographic display showing the current galactic map. Over 70% of former Federation territory now showed as independent or in active rebellion. As you can see, the situation has moved beyond simple diplomatic solutions. Kiwon studied the map with growing alarm. "Surely these worlds will reconsider once they understand the benefits of Federation membership. Without our protection and trade networks, many of these species will face economic hardship." "Actually," Nara said, consulting her tablet, "our economic analysts project significant improvement for most independent worlds once they're free from Federation resource extraction quotas. The Calaxians alone will see their planetary income increase by 400%, once they control their own mining operations. She pulled up detailed economic projections for several worlds. The Federation system was designed to extract wealth from member worlds, not protect them. Independence means these species can finally prosper. Kiwan's confidence began to crack. "What exactly are you proposing?" "The terms are straightforward," Nara replied. "The Federation Council, along with senior military leadership, will submit to trials before an impartial interstellar court. All evidence of war crimes and charter violations will be presented publicly. Those found guilty will face appropriate consequences." "And if we refuse?" Kiwan asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "Then you watch your empire continue its collapse," Nara said simply. "More worlds declare independence every day. Your own military officers are questioning orders. Some Federation ships have already joined the independent coalition." She leaned forward slightly. "Counselor, you have two choices. Face justice through legal proceedings, or face chaos as your entire civilization crumbles. There are no other options." The conference hall fell silent except for the quiet hum of life support systems. Kiwan looked around at the holographic representatives of worlds that had once bowed to Federation authority, now staring at him with expressions of determination and barely contained anger. For the first time in Federation history, humans had forced the galaxy's most powerful government to choose between justice and destruction. 6 months had passed since the Federation Council agreed to the trials, and Hana barely recognized the galaxy anymore. She stood in what had once been the Federation's central command center, now transformed into the headquarters of something entirely new: the Galactic Justice Coalition. The building buzzed with activity as representatives from over 200 species worked together on creating a new form of interstellar government. What amazed Hana most was how efficiently everything ran, despite having no single species in absolute control. "Commander Hana," a familiar voice called out. She turned to see Junho Kim approaching, with a stack of documents under his arm. The human had been appointed as the lead architect for the new Galactic Constitution, a responsibility that would have terrified most Federation officials. "Director Junho," Hana replied, still adjusting to the less formal titles used in the coalition. "How are the constitutional proceedings going?" Junho smiled warmly. "Better than expected. We've established the basic framework for representation based on population and contribution, rather than military strength. Every species gets a voice, regardless of their technological level." He showed her a tablet displaying the new governmental structure. Instead of the Federation's rigid hierarchy with the High Council at the top, the coalition used a complex but fair system of checks and balances that prevented any single group from dominating others. "This is fascinating," Hana admitted, studying the organizational chart. "But how do you enforce decisions without a central military authority?" "That's the beauty of it," Junho explained, leading her to a large conference room where delegates from dozens of worlds were debating trade regulations. "Enforcement comes from mutual agreement and shared benefit, not fear of punishment." Inside the conference room, Hana watched something she had never seen before. A tiny insectoid delegate from the hive worlds was successfully arguing against a proposal supported by much larger, more technologically advanced species. In the old Federation, the hive worlds would never have dared speak up, much less expect their concerns to be taken seriously. "But what happens when species disagree?" Hana asked. "The Federation maintained order through superior force, and look how that worked out," Junho replied gently. "The Federation created more conflicts than it resolved. Here, we use mediation, compromise, and sometimes we agree to disagree on issues that don't affect everyone." He pointed to another group of delegates working on establishing trade routes. "The Aquatic Alliance and the Desert Coalition have completely different environmental needs, but they're creating the most successful trade partnership we've ever seen because both sides benefit equally." Hana had been assigned to work with the Coalition's new enforcement division, which operated very differently from her old job. Instead of arriving at worlds with threats and ultimatums, Coalition peacekeepers were invited by local governments to help resolve disputes. "Your first assignment is ready," Junho said, handing her a mission briefing. "The mining colonies in the Outer Rim are having territorial disputes. They've requested coalition mediation. Hannah read through the briefing, noting how different it was from Federation mission orders. Instead of being told what to do, she was given background information about all parties involved and asked to find solutions that worked for everyone. No predetermined outcomes, she asked. No orders to enforce specific policies. None, Junho confirmed. Your job is to listen, understand the problems, and help the colonies find their own solutions. Success is measured by how satisfied all parties are with the resolution, not by how quickly you can impose order. Over the following weeks, Hannah discovered that this new approach actually worked better than Federation methods. When people felt heard and respected, they were much more willing to compromise and work together. The galaxy was becoming more peaceful, more prosperous, and more free than it had ever been under Federation rule, all because humans had introduced the radical concept that authority should serve the people, not the other way around. The morning sun streamed through the crystal windows of the Coalition headquarters as Hannah made her way to the Interspecies Relations Department. Her new office overlooked a courtyard where delegates from dozens of worlds mingled freely, sharing meals and conversations that would have been impossible under Federation rule. She paused at her desk to review the day's schedule. 3 mediation sessions, a cultural exchange planning meeting, and a conference call with the Outer Rim colonies she had helped resolve their mining dispute. Each task represented the kind of work she had never imagined doing as a Federation officer, work that actually helped people instead of controlling them. "Good morning, Director Hannah," came a familiar voice from her doorway. She looked up to see Captain Jinwoo entering with his characteristic respectful bow. Even after all these months, he still greeted her the same way he had that first day when she had arrived to arrest him. But now Hannah understood what that bow really meant. "Captain." "Jinwoo," she replied, rising from her chair and returning the bow with equal respect. "Please come in. How are the new trade route negotiations progressing?" Jinwoo took a seat across from her desk, his relaxed posture showing how much more comfortable their relationship had become. "Surprisingly well. The Galaxians and Zephronites have agreed to establish joint shipping lanes. 2 species that barely spoke to each other 6 months ago are now planning a major economic partnership." Hannah shook her head in amazement. "Under the Federation, we would have assigned them separate sectors and forbidden direct contact to prevent conflicts. Now they're voluntarily working together." "That's the difference between forced separation and chosen cooperation," Jinwoo observed. "When people aren't afraid of punishment for making mistakes, they're much more willing to try new things." Through her office window, Hannah could see a group of young beings from various species playing together in the courtyard. Galaxian children, with their turtle-like shells, were laughing alongside crystalline Zephronite youngsters and even some human kids. Their parents watched from nearby benches, chatting casually despite coming from worlds that had been isolated from each other for generations. "I never thought I'd see anything like this," Hannah admitted. "The Federation taught us that different species needed strict boundaries to coexist peacefully. But look at them. They're just getting along naturally. People usually do when they're treated with respect instead of suspicion," Jinwoo said. "The Federation created most of the conflicts it claimed to prevent by making everyone afraid of everyone else." A soft chime indicated an incoming message on Hannah's communication device. She glanced at the display and smiled. "It's from the Delphinid delegation. They're requesting coalition assistance in establishing underwater cities on 3 different worlds. Voluntary requests for help, imagine that." "No enforcement actions needed?" Jinwoo asked with a slight smile. "None whatsoever. They're asking for engineering consultants and cultural advisors to help them adapt to new environments while preserving their traditions." Hannah still marveled at how different her work had become. 6 months ago, the Federation would have told them where they could settle and what cultural practices they were allowed to keep. Jinwoo stood to leave, then paused at the doorway. "Hannah, can I ask you something personal? Do you miss the old way of doing things, the certainty of absolute authority?" Hannah considered the question carefully. "Sometimes I miss the simplicity of it. Following orders was easier than making decisions based on what's actually right, but I wouldn't go back. This work means something. When I help resolve a dispute now, it stays resolved because everyone chose the solution. That's the difference between compliance and cooperation, Jinwoo said. One lasts only as long as the threat remains. The other lasts because people believe in it. As he left with his respectful bow, Hana realized that she had finally learned what true authority looked like. Not the power to force others to obey, but the wisdom to help them find their own path forward.